with your hosts, Jimmy Thompson and Donato Bucci. They're covering the most current issues in sports from the 305 to the 412 and all the way to the West Coast. You can follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at JT and the Don, or email them at jtandthedon@gmail.com. Now take it away, guys.
Give them a shot to do what?
Welcome to the next episode of JT and the Don, presented by Give Us a Shot Network. I am the Don, Donato Bucci, and remember to subscribe to us wherever you find all of your other favorite podcasts, and remember to leave us a 5-star review, as well as please subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network YouTube channel. And thank you to Nicole Thompson for the wonderful introduction, as well as to our guy, Mike Regina, with the JT and the Don pump up music. We have a very special episode of JT and the Don, little college football review show with our in-house resident expert, college football expert. But first, let me welcome in everyone's favorite, JT, Jimmy Thompson. How you feeling today?
Good, man. It's been a while. I'm glad, the schedule opened up and you two weren't busy. I'm glad you can make time for, the little guys like me. But yeah, it should be a good show, man. It's good to be back.
It's always JT's fault when we go on hiatus like that. He's been a world traveler lately, to Mexico. I won't say where. To Canada. I won't say where, just in case.
You just said where. He's like, I'm giving his address, but I won't say where. You just did.
I'm saying exactly where.
Jesus Christ, man.
We don't want our loyal fans to know where you hang out, since that's
you just told
he's
him.
Not,
Jesus Christ.
He's not a man amongst the people. But one who is our own in-house resident college football expert, offensive coordinator of Landon football, Coach Connor Cassidy. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for your time. How are you?
Hey, guys, it's good to be with you again. Doing well, thank you.
Always good to have you. Always good to have you. Thank you for your time. Sorry you got to put up with JT, but, JT's gonna start us off here.
No, you are.
A pleasure. I'm just glad you lost those results from the early season show.
Yeah, yep. Conveniently lost them. No, but Don, go ahead, kick us off. You got the first one.
All right. I'll start us off. All right, so college football playoff field is set. First games beginning on December 20, one game on the 20th. So, Coach C, as JT likes to call you, we're going to go to you first. You're the expert. Did the committee get it right? And if not, which team or teams do you think they missed on?
Yes, it's a good question. I think it's important for your fans to know that the committee is actually responsible for simply ranking the teams in order as they see them, but they were not responsible for the structure of the bracket and the way that the byes worked and the way that conference champions, the highest 4 ranked conference champions, are given byes. The top 5 conference champions get the automatic qualifier. They're not involved in the structuring of the bracket. They rank the teams 1 through 25 as they see them, and then those teams are placed into the bracket under the criteria. And the bracket was created by the conference commissioners, essentially. And so I think a lot of the consternation about how it all shook out from fans around the country had a lot to do with the fact that, Penn State's got the easiest path and Oregon's path is really difficult. And I think there's a lot of truth in the sentiments being voiced by fans and viewers and followers of college football. But I think the committee itself did their job pretty faithfully. And I think they did a pretty good job slating the teams 1 through 12 that made it in. If you want to take a look at the bottom, the last team in, the last team out, They went in favor of SMU over Alabama. And I think the consensus there seems to be that they didn't want to penalize SMU for losing in an extra game, the ACC Conference Championship game, when Bama was at home idle. Obviously, SMU went down early, had to roar back to make it competitive with Clemson. But at the end of the day, I think they had enough of a body of work with their 11-2 record, the fact that they hung tough and were competitive against Clemson and didn't just fold after going down early. And then basically, like, Alabama in many ways had their destiny in their own hands and went off to Norman, Oklahoma, and laid an absolute egg, losing 24-3. And just they didn't look like one of the 12 best teams in the country. And then obviously, you know, they finished with a win in the Iron Bowl, but I just think that it wasn't enough at that point. And so I think, like, you know, you could quibble over the 12th team in if you want, but I think ultimately the committee did a pretty good job.
I love how you kind of set the stage for the listeners. I mean, that's why you're the expert, right? You talked about who came up with the bracket system, and it wasn't the committee. So thank you for clarifying that. JT, what do you say?
I mean, that's a tough act to follow, but I got to agree. I really don't have anything that stands out that the committee missed per se. I think basically they only had one job, is don't put Alabama in, because I think if they would have found a way to put Alabama in this playoff, they would have just burned down the establishment. It would have been a disaster. But the fact that they didn't let them in and they let a team, like you mentioned, like a SMU, you know, make a mistake and not let that one mistake tarnish, you know, the body of work that they put together for the entire season, giving Boise State a bye, you know, I think those kind of speak to, you know, the potential of where this playoff could be going in the future. And, you know, not only do teams who traditionally wouldn't be in that spot have a chance, but, you know, you might have a chance to get a bye if all you can do is just do your job and win games. So I didn't see anything egregious, you know, as far as the team that was left out. I think, like I said, by not putting Bama in, I think it was damn near the way it was supposed to go and damn near perfect. So I didn't really have any complaints.
All right, so I'm going to have a couple of questions after I give my answer. But personally, I'm hearing a lot of this, you know, conference champs should not get an automatic bye. I personally have no issue with it. So that's going to be one of the questions I end up asking at the end of my answer to you guys. I have no issue with conference champions getting a bye on top of the auto bid. Like, people are saying that they should do away with the conference champion getting one of those 4 byes. It should simply be the top 4 teams, meaning if 2 Big Ten teams are in the top 4, even if only one of them is a conference champ, then 2 Big Ten teams should get a bye. I disagree with that. I think they should keep it. If they're going to keep it 12 for now, keep it the way it is. Conference champ gets an automatic bid, or not only an automatic bid, but the bye, because to me, just like in the NFL, you can be a 9-8 division winner and host an 11 and what would it be? 11-6 wild card team. That sounds, you know, that doesn't sound right, but that's the way it is, because there should be some meaning behind winning a division. There should be some meaning behind winning a conference. If not, get rid of all of it, right? Just everyone is all 212 teams, 112 teams, whatever it is. You're all in one pot, top 12. That's all we're taking. Forget conferences, forget all these championships, Saturday games, forget about it. So I think it should still mean something, and I like how they get a bye. I like how Boise State and Arizona State get a bye. They played in a good conference and won the conference. Who else are you going to put in? Texas? Well, Texas lost twice to Georgia already, twice, not just once, twice. Why should they get a top 4 bid over a Boise State, over an Arizona State? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. You're going to put Penn State in there? They can't win a big game. Like, because their name's Penn State and they're in the Big Ten, they should automatically be a top 4 team? Like, no, that doesn't make sense. The only thing I had an issue with the committee directly was I thought they got the Penn State, who they're playing SMU, that they ranked Penn State higher than Ohio State, who's hosting Tennessee. I like SMU, but let's be honest, Tennessee's a little bit tougher task than SMU. Why is Penn State?
Are you confident in that though? Like, we don't know. That's the beauty of this playoff.
I'm not sure, but
because
based
you're
on
talking
the
about
rankings,
the same Tennessee team that struggled against Florida, who the Canes destroyed.
I mean, I get that, but
I'm not.
This is the thing.
That's the SEC bias that I'm not agreeing with.
But this is the thing, JT. You look at the second round, Penn State has a little bit easier road because they're ranked higher. My whole point is, how are you ranking this? Maybe I missed the explanation, but why is Ohio State below Penn State? Because this is what I'll say. They're both Big Ten schools with 2 losses, each of them to Oregon. So if Penn State had played them earlier in the year, they lose to Oregon because they did in the title game. So to me, that's where the title game actually does matter and can hurt a team. You played the same team Ohio State played and lost. You each have 2 losses, each of them to Oregon, and I beat you. If I beat you head-to-head, now you're basically saying head-to-heads don't matter. We're still going to put Penn State in front of Ohio State. That does not make sense to me.
I get what you're saying.
I think that's where the loss to Michigan really hurt Ohio State.
But Connor, I don't understand why it does.
It's a home loss to a team that's not good.
I still beat you.
Who they should have destroyed.
We each have 2 losses. I still beat you. The reason why they kept Miami out was not their losses, because those were 2 good losses. It was they didn't win enough good games. Well, Ohio State beat Penn State. What else do you want us to do? We beat the team that you put ahead of us. Everything else is equal.
So,
yes,
what's your question? You said you had a question at the whole
my 2 questions,
long-ass diatribe.
Sorry, I'll let Connor sound like Connor. Do you want to follow up on that before I ask you the question?
No, I think that the committee has a bunch of different criteria that they look at, one of which is head-to-head. And they look at Penn State, and they lost to 2 highly ranked teams, right? They lost to Oregon, and they lost to Ohio State, where Ohio State lost to highly ranked, obviously number 1 Oregon, but also
on the road, not a neutral site.
Absolutely, but also had that bad loss in Michigan. And so I think
I still beat you.
Hey, listen, I hear you. The head-to-head argument is strong, certainly. But obviously it's only one of the criteria that the selection committee is considering.
So my question is, and that's fair. That I can understand.
Okay,
I still disagree. But
the follow-up to you would be then, like, imagine that Alabama gets in over SMU, right? And they have a win over Georgia. All right. Head-to-head, Alabama has win over Georgia. Are you okay with the committee putting Georgia over Alabama?
Well, in this case, Georgia has earned it because of the conference title. So there's no debate there, right? And even if they had not won and they only had 2 losses, I would say, well, they still have less losses than Alabama. I'm fine with Georgia being in front of Alabama in that situation. So, so I'd be fine with that because of the amount of losses Alabama has. So my question, I'll start with Connor real quick, off script a little bit, is, do you have an issue with how the system is right now in terms of the not the automatic bids, the automatic buys for the top 4 conference winners?
Initially I didn't really have an issue with it. But then when like the rubber hits the road and you see the bracket and you're kind of like, wow, that's a tough draw for Oregon. You're the number 1 team, you're undefeated, and you've got to play the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. Like, candidly, I'd probably rather play the winner of, maybe Notre Dame, Indiana, or something like that. I wonder if there's a way in which they could, like, instead of just simply ranking the teams 1 through 12, like recognizing the rules of the bracket, kind of build out a bracket that they seemed was the most fair. But I hadn't even considered that until tonight. But it was interesting hearing a lot of people talk this week about, like, well, in college basketball, there's all these AQs that they give out, but that doesn't necessarily impact how they're seeding.
What about if they would just reseed after the first round?
Yeah, I heard a little talk about that as well. Apparently, like, the logistics are very challenging with that, because it's like I don't know.
To me, that's
because you got to sell tickets. That's too quick of a turnaround.
To me,
that's like, the bracket says we're going to play one place, and then depending on what happens with the game, now people got to change their travel plans and travel somewhere else. It's not like they're playing like in a region like in basketball.
But no, that's not true, JT. That's not true. The quarterfinals are a specific bowl game. We already know where they're going. We just don't know the other team.
I feel like it's harder to.
How's that different than the final? How's that different than the Final Four, JT? You don't know if your team's
in the same spot, though.
But that's my point. These quarterfinal games against Boise State, it's not at Boise State. It's at whatever bowl game's already been determined.
So it's at a select city.
Already, yes. Everyone knows. We just don't know who's playing against Boise State.
Yeah, but the Final Four is different because all 4 teams are playing in the same spot. But the quarterfinals is 2 different spots, right? Or is it 4 teams in one spot?
It's
That's
4
a big
different
difference.
spots. It's 4 different spots. But what's it matter is what I'm saying. What does that matter?
I think it's hard to have a turnaround and people travel in different places like that.
So do you agree with the automatic bye for
the conference championship? The conference champion should get one of the top 4 seeds. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Hell no. Clemson's a perfect example because what you're
doing is. But they didn't. They did not.
But I'm saying, but Clemson is a perfect example of why that should not be. And you're basically, if you do that, you are going to turn college football into college basketball. And one of the things that people hate about college basketball is essentially the regular season doesn't matter because you can get your shit together in the conference tournament, get lucky, and boom, you get some kind of high bid because of that. Now they don't get an automatic 1 seed, but if you're saying that the conference champions should get a bye just simply for winning 1 game, I think that's way too much, especially in football. Like SMU's body of work is way more impressive than Clemson's, and you're gonna penalize them for 1 mistake, a close mistake? Like that's unreal. Like I absolutely not. I think you need to take into account the entire body of work, winning that game, how they got there, strength of schedule, all the stuff. I think you need to put that under the microscope, and that's how you determine who the top 4 seeds are to get the bye.
And they did.
Clemson
ended up being a 12. Clemson ended up being 12. See, this is my point. Because the name is Boise State compared to Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, no one wants to give them the bye. Because they play in the Mountain West. Well, they still went 12-1. But if the system was not the way it is, I don't think them or Arizona State gets a bye, and I think they've earned it.
Well, we'll find out.
Other quick question, real quick. This is more for Coach Cassidy because I know the way JT is going to answer this. Coach Cassidy, the first team out was Bama. The second team out was Miami. Now, they both didn't get in, so it didn't matter. But just as a Canes fan, we want to know, did the committee get it? Did the committee get it right that Bama was the next team out, or should it have been the Canes? Because I think it matters for future reference.
Man, that's tough. I think Miami, so much changes if and this comes up a little later, right? But so much changes if they just win in the Dome, right? Then they go on to the ACC title game, and then even if you use SMU as a case study there, like SMU wins the title game, Miami loses in the title game, they're probably in, right? Like SMU's where Clemson is, Miami's where SMU is,
right?
You think they would let us in? I think we were done anyway. Alabama was going to get that spot if SMU won. That I feel like.
Well,
they didn't want the Canes to be a part of anything. Like they barely talked about Cam Ward for Heisman. Like they just you saw how they were ranking us all year. Like they just were not impressed as a complete team. And I feel like they didn't want us in there.
They had us in the top 6 with 1 loss. I think they would have done what they did to SMU. We'd be we'd probably be 11 or 12, right?
You think we jump Bama if SMU wins? I disagree, but
no. We would have stayed ahead of Bama. We would have still been number 6 had we beaten Cuse. That was the whole thing.
I agree.
Coach Cassidy, let's move on to the big one, right? The predictions. This is what we love. Predictions.
Are you actually going to write these down, or do we have to go?
I'll write them down. See, this is why I go old school pen and paper. JT's always like, "Nah, get with the new age, get with the digital."
I always tell you to write this shit down,
and then it disappears. And then it just disappears.
Tell you to write it down. Every time you do predictions, I tell you to write it down.
I'm going old school here.
I bet it's still on social media.
It might be. It might be. I don't know. I don't know how to use social media. All right, Coach Cassidy, which 4 teams do you have in the semifinal? Then give us your championship game matchup and then pick the winner.
All right. I'm going Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Georgia.
Wow. Okay.
Then I've got,
sorry. Go ahead.
Keep going?
Yeah, finish it up. Yep, finish it up.
Then I've got Oregon, Georgia, and I'm going with the Ducks.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Let me make sure I write this down. All right, there we go. All right, JT. I'm only going to lose it if I'm incorrect.
I'm not gonna
JT.
lie, Coach. This is why it's very tough to follow up anything you do. So my Final Four is Georgia, Penn State, Oregon, and I got a surprise one, Clemson. I hate that they're just hanging around.
So you got Georgia, Clemson. What's the other two?
Georgia, Penn State, Oregon, Clemson.
Okay.
And then championship, I also do have Georgia and Oregon. And as much as I hate this guy, I think it's going to be Oregon. I think Dan Lanning gets his "we're playing for wins, not clicks" moment validated. So, and he gets revenge on Georgia. They stomped the mess out of him. Was it 2 or 3 years ago, season opener, and it's taken him a while to get back from that. So I think comes full circle here. So I think Oregon wins.
All right. I like some of those. I can agree with some of those. So I'll go Oregon. And I'm going to go Texas. So Oregon's going to face Texas.
You love Texas. That's going to be the death of you every single time.
In the semifinals. And then I'm going to go Notre Dame versus SMU in the other semifinal. I think SMU, I think everyone's down because of that Clemson game, but I think that was just such a big stage for SMU. It took them 3 quarters to get into it. And now that they're used to it, like it's now just become another game for them, right? Like they've seen the big stage now. So I have no doubt, because I think that offense can hang with anybody. So I have no doubt
we should know. It's Rhett last
and then I'm going to go Oregon versus Notre Dame. I'm not sold on any of these teams. Penn State can't win a big game. Ryan Day, you got to show me. And then the Georgia pick, that's where I disagree with you guys. I think
Clearly.
that offense showed me they can't hang. That defense is really good, but they should have lost to Georgia Tech. And the only reason why they won, they were at home. Georgia Tech couldn't seal the deal. But the fact that I believe that they should have lost at home to Georgia Tech leads me to believe they can lose to any of these playoff teams. And that's why I don't trust them. And then I'm with you guys. I got Oregon beating Notre Dame. It's just their year. I just think it's their year, top to bottom, special teams, everything. I think it's Oregon.
I do think it's interesting that, like, in the first year of our 12-team playoff, there's a ton of parity. And there's a lot of teams you could point to that have a legitimate shot of winning this thing. Whereas, like, throw in one of the Alabama great teams or, like, the 2019 LSU team. Like, if they're in this 12-team field, it wouldn't feel like a bunch of teams would have a shot.
Right. But this is what I love about it, though. Even with an LSU-type team, because you have to play 3 games, do injuries happen? Right? Is there now too much on film that teams can figure out a weakness, even though LSU's offense really didn't have one? But if Burrow goes down, if someone goes down on that offense, are they the same? And now you've got quarterfinal semis. That's not guaranteed anymore.
Yeah.
And everyone.
Or maybe it's just not your night. One of those 3 times, like any given Saturday, it can happen. So,
right,
the parity will be, and you have to do it multiple times instead of just a one-shot deal.
And before we move on, I want to go back. JT, you had mentioned like people saying that they don't want it to become like college basketball where regular season doesn't matter. To me, the regular season means even more now. Think about that last game with Miami and Syracuse. In the past, we would have known Miami would have never been a top 4 team, right? Or if it was the old BCS, would have never gotten in the top 2. But that game meant something for Syracuse now. They sell out the Carrier Dome. Syracuse football is back. You go look at other games. I mean, you go down the line, all those SMU games for Clemson, the championship game in the past, that wouldn't have mattered because they were 9-3. But now that was a play-in game for them. So it adds even more to the championship games on top of just being a conference champion. So to me, I think it's done the opposite. Everyone for years was saying, let's not go to a playoff. It's going to water down the regular season. It does the opposite. More teams are now invested, and even if you're not in it, you can knock out a team.
The AQ for conference champions being the end-all, be-all for the bye is what could hurt it. I agree with you. Like, it's definitely helping the regular season.
The difference there between basketball is I can be the 12th seeded team in the conference, and I'm getting into the tournament, right? I can't be number 12 in the conference. I got to be a top 2 team. So I still need to win the regular season.
So you before we move on, because we do got to get to the rest of this. So let's say somehow a 6-6 team or 500 team wins the conference championship. Should they get a bye?
But realistically, it's almost impossible for like a 5-4 team to be a top 2 in a conference. It just is. And
I mean, you never know. You never know.
No, because the way they're doing it now, like the ACC, you have all these teams. You can't do it anymore. Maybe the old way where everyone's in a division beating up on each other. But now if you're 5-4 in a conference, good luck. You might not even be in the top 4.
Yeah, that can happen in basketball because everybody makes the postseason tournament, whereas it's just like a one-off game with the 2 highest teams in like a 17-team conference. That's never going to happen mathematically.
Right.
No, I got you. All right. Let me make sure I read this right, because if someone will have a fit.
I wrote it down for you this time. No. Can't mess it up.
Let's play
the
college football.
Let's
play the college football season recap checkdown game. We will ask a question and provide multiple answers to it. Then we will select the answer that we think fits best. So the genius on this show wrote it. If I don't read it that exact way, he will complain. Your Highness, are you satisfied?
Well, we know the real genius is
It's a yes or no question.
Cassidy,
We don't need a dissertation.
Hey,
are you satisfied? Hey, are you entertained?
Great job reading the teleprompter.
I wish I could be your mic. It's a yes or no question.
Great job.
Are you happy?
Are
you happy?
I gave an answer.
Thank you, God. Jesus. Well, let's play check down game. Everybody knows what this is. All right, we going straight for the jugular first. More disappointing, the Miami Hurricanes collapse or Bama's collapse? Coach, I just want to get him out of the way first. So I'm going to go to Donato because he seems to want to bring you into every part of this show. When the shit's over, we ruined it ourselves. So, Don, bigger disappointment. Which collapse was worse?
Oh, it's Bama's collapse, right? And listen, I'm speaking as a Canes fan. As a Canes fan, JT, we are used to this. In fact, when you haven't won a conference title in 20 years like the Canes of being in the ACC, you expect to lose games to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. So, which, by the way, were 2 really good teams at the end of the day. But it's obviously Bama. There's a standard there that, unlike any other program in the country, any other fan base, as we always say, no one's entitled to this or that. Well, Alabama fans are about as close in sports to being entitled as anybody is, even probably more than New England Patriot fans back in the day. And it's the fact that it's not that Bama just lost 3 games, but they lost to an unranked Vanderbilt. They lost to an unranked Oklahoma team and got smoked. They looked nothing like a Bama team of the past 13, 15 years in that loss at Oklahoma. These are things we hadn't seen before from an Alabama team. So I think that collapse has to be most disappointing, especially in the first year for Kalen DeBoer.
I ain't gonna lie. I know we haven't done this in a while, but I thought the check down game was quick. He took a long ass time. Coach, which one was worse?
Well, that's interesting. It seems like you're thinking about collapse differently than I was thinking about it, the way that I read the question. And so you're talking about like from last year to this year, or from like the last era of college football to this year. And I was thinking about it within the confines of this season. And so that's where I came up with Miami as the answer, because they were in the driver's seat in their conference. They were undefeated, through like 9 weeks of the regular season. And then lost 2 of their last 3 to teams that they were better than. I mean, you can give credit to Syracuse for being competitive and having a great season. Georgia Tech obviously had a good finish to the season, had some nice wins, and took Georgia to the 8 overtimes or what have you. But I think with where they were with 3 weeks to go, Miami feels like a greater collapse to me.
See, Don, that's how you know you're wrong. I agree with Coach C, and I agree with Ultimate Bros.
No.
He's a 2017 all over again. I expected a downtick from Bama.
You fell for the trap. That's a Pitt fan, and you remember what happened. Number 2 in the country, Thanksgiving weekend, we went into 2017.
I can't forget. I remember exactly where I was when we lost that game. I said we were going to lose.
Kenny Pickett ran the bootleg on us.
But I will say this. I agree. It's Miami for all the reasons that Coach C said. We had our destiny in our own hands, and we literally didn't play one team that if you were to say on a neutral site that we have played them, that were better than us. Like, we were the best team in every game that we played this year, including Florida, and we just could not seal the deal. You lose to Georgia Tech 2 years in a row, and you can say what you want about Syracuse. Last time I checked, I was sitting in my hotel room. We're up 21-0. I'm about to enjoy the rest of my trip. And I'm like, yeah, not so fast. Let's see what happens. And boom, they're back in the game. So Miami's collapse was ridiculous. Like, you saw signs that can happen, but their collapse over the last month of the season, is unbelievable. Bama, we expected this. Nick Saban's not there anymore. Their top players transferred out. Like, you expected them not to be the Bama of old. Miami, we legit thought we should have went to the ACC championship game. We did not.
What is so disappointing about you guys have watched a lot of football this year, especially JT with the Canes. What made you think that defense was going to hold up?
But you see that all the time. You see that all the time. Teams, look at the old Oregon teams. Their defense will give up 40-something a game, and they still will find a way to go 12-1.
But it's different. That was different.
The offense sometimes didn't do its thing. Most of the times it did. Now, the defense was bad, but it still should have been enough to beat every team that we played.
But think about it.
We were legit worried about, all right, do we play Clemson in this championship game? Does it go downhill after that?
If we're being honest, we should have lost to Virginia Tech and should have lost to Cal.
No,
I'm sorry.
That game shouldn't even been close.
And we lost to Georgia Tech last year. You saw the way we lost to Georgia Tech. What made you think anything was going to change this year?
Georgia Tech's Mario learned his lesson.
And that's your fault. That's why, to me, it's not more disappointing. If you want to say more heartbreaking, fine, but more disappointing, no, we knew this was coming.
That's what's interesting about losing to Georgia Tech is, like, you'd think that this year they would have the attention, right? Like, oh, they got us last year. We gave it away. We're not going to let it happen again. And then to JT's point, like, not only was, like, the end of the season a collapse, but, like, they had the Syracuse game in their hands. You're up 21-0. And then, like, not to mention, you got the ball on the 7-yard line in the fourth quarter, and they decided, knowing the defense that they have and how they had been playing in the second half.
And you got Cam Ward. You got Cam Ward. He is.
But again, are we surprised by this? Are we surprised by this? This is the same coach that doesn't know how to take a knee.
Donato, the question was
more disappointing. Yes.
How is that?
That's because you're a Canes fan. That's why you're disappointed. If you're neutral,
stupid of me for having optimism that my team won't shit the bed every 5 seconds. All right, next one.
Next question. You said it was supposed to be quick.
Yeah, you keep talking. Bigger threat. Playoffs. Penn State or Ohio State? Coach, I'm going to you first because we got to mute Don's mic. We don't care about what he says.
All right. Well, I think we talked a little bit about how Penn State's got the easy road. But that said, I think the bigger threat is Ohio State. I think Ohio State, when they play to their ceiling, is as good as almost anyone in the country. They showed what they could do against Oregon in the regular season, barely, losing on the road in a great game. They thoroughly handled Penn State. They beat Indiana in the regular season. So they've beaten a bunch of playoff teams. They are a real threat to win this thing. No one wants to see them.
Yeah, I agree. It's Ohio State. They've proved already they're better than Penn State. They beat them, right? They have everything Penn State has. Plus, they actually know how to win a big game. Like, they've won a big game recently. Penn State's really never done that under James Franklin. And I'm never counting out Ohio State, right? I think you can do that with Penn State, Ohio State. Penn State can make a run. I'm not denying that. But the team I would never count out is Ohio State. And they actually had an extra week to rest up, get things right, get mentally prepared, because Penn State had to get ready for Oregon. And, they're going to be banged up from that Oregon game to me. And Ohio State has an extra week to kind of mentally get over the Michigan game.
I think it's close, but I got to disagree with you guys. I think what's holding Ohio State back has nothing to do with what they're doing on the field. I think it's, what's going on with the coach. They just seem kind of a little heading towards broken. I'm going with Penn State. They're that wild card. Like you said, they've never done this before, so you don't expect it from them. And I'm going to say it out loud. I think they got the best quarterback in the playoffs. So anytime you got that kind of player, you always got a chance. I'm just believing Penn State can be some team that, I don't want to see them on a neutral site. Because that game against Oregon, it was a good game. Like, that could have gone either way. So I think it's going to be Penn State. Now, next one. More likely, Georgia is the best team in the playoff, or Boise State is a fraud? Coach.
I thought this was the hardest question of the night. And I think
it's a dumb question.
I think
when they're really good and challenging, they're my questions. When they're like over dramatized questions, they're JT
I tried to give him an opportunity to do the right thing, and he did not do the right thing.
Just to push back
Definitely
a little bit,
not his
I
question,
think
but
this is
go
the
ahead.
toughest question because I actually disagree with both statements. So I have to choose one to affirm that I disagree with. And I think that like more likely is Georgia's the best team. They didn't look like the best team when they played Kentucky, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, or Alabama. But they might look like they could be the best team if you look at them against Texas twice, Clemson, and Tennessee. They're the SEC champs. They're seeded number 2. They got a real shot. We'll see we'll see if they can take down the Ducks or whoever else comes out of that half of the bracket if they prevail.
I agree with you. It was the toughest question. I agree with you because there's no neither one's correct.
Because you wrote it.
Neither one is correct. So you're choosing like the lesser of the two evils. Listen, I already told you I don't believe in Georgia. I don't believe that offense can win a national title against the other teams that they need to face 3 weeks in a row. So unfortunately, and this is no disrespect to Boise State, but I'm going to say more likely is Boise State is a fraud only because I don't believe in Georgia. Like, I don't believe in Georgia. They're a good team, not the best team. And, I mean, their defense will carry them, but they just don't have the same offense. And if Beck, again, not a big Carson Beck fan in terms of his play, but if I'm going into this game with a guy that's never started a game before and we're in the playoffs now, I'm not taking that team. So I can't say Georgia's the best team. So sorry, Boise State. I'm going to say you're a fraud, but I don't believe they're a fraud either.
I think I'm going with Boise State just simply for the argument you made about Penn State. Like, Boise State's never done this before. Like, they have basically been the G5 version of Penn State the entire time we've known Boise State to be competitive. Like,
that's not true. That's not
It's true. It's true. Like, what big games would it matter? Have
JT,
they won?
you're so right. You know why? Because they were never given a chance before. Penn State is like 0-17 under James Franklin. Boise State never has been given a chance.
Now we're gonna have the football gods are gonna make up for all that lost time because they're gonna get plenty of chances to prove themselves against this elite talent that they would have beat back then. So
I'm not saying that.
I just think it's more like
your argument's not valid. Is what I'm trying to say.
You let me finish? I feel it's more likely Boise State is a fraud as a top 4 team.
Data points.
Then Georgia is not the best team. I'm sorry. I could fuck around and find out. 2 weeks in, but until I see it, I don't believe it. It's Boise State.
Cost you money. It's gonna cost you money.
Whatever.
Right,
put it on my tab.
To the potty mouth jar.
Ain't nobody paying that. All right, more impressive. Clemson's finish or Oregon's undefeated season?
I mean, this one.
Coach,
this one.
I don't want to hear Donato, please.
This one's easy. Clemson's finish was. I mean, they lost to South Carolina at home in the last game of the regular season in the rivalry game. They backed in thanks to Fran Brown to the championship game. And yeah, they beat SMU in the championship game. That's great. Congrats to them. They're in the playoff. But Oregon has done something that's very impressive. I don't care at what level, what sport, you go undefeated. That's a great season. And 13-0, what was it? And wins over some big opponents. And not to mention in a new conference with all the travel and the logistics and the new opponents, the game planning that requires. 4 top 25 wins. I give it to the Ducks.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be Oregon's undefeated season. I mean, listen, anytime you go undefeated in any sport, in any country, at any level, it's impressive. Plus, to do it, like Coach was saying, first year of playing the Big Ten Conference, when everyone kept saying, oh, these teams that are going to Big 12 to the SEC won't be able to hang. Texas gets to a conference title game. Oh, the Pac-12 teams, they won't be able to play in the cold weather. They're not tough enough. What happens?
This
Oregon
is literally
goes
shit that you
undefeated.
said.
So
I like how you're making this argument like, oh, that was never true. This is literally things that you have said.
Well, that's why it's so impressive. They proved me wrong. That doesn't happen often. Good job, Oregon.
I'm like, am I tripping or did he not say this exact stuff? So you guys are both going Oregon was the more impressive.
And on top of that, they beat Ohio State and Penn State.
All right. I get it. Yeah, the Ducks are impressive. Dan Lanning got his wins, and he didn't have to worry about getting the clicks. I get it. I'm gonna disagree. It's Clemson because if you look at them mid-season, they were dead in the water. Everybody said that this was the end of the Clemson era. Dabo might be fired. they had too many white players on the field, this, that, and the third. Only for them to do what they always do, win the ACC championship game. This Clemson team was supposed to be the worst of the Dabo era, and they were still better than the Canes. And now they're in the playoffs. Like, I think it's very impressive. I think it's way more impressive just because nobody expected Clemson to be in the playoffs a month and a half ago. Nobody did. And I think with their lack of overall talent, and we can agree that this is like one of the most least talented Clemson teams. Like, it's even more impressive with their talent level. Like, Oregon was expected to do this. Like, they have the ultimate amount of talent on that team. So I expect them to be a top 2 or 3 team. So I disagree. I think it's Clemson's finish. Next one, more impressive.
Wait, you said they were dead mid-season. They were dead after week 1, 34-3.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody was like, "Oh, Dabo's done. He's gonna be fired." And it's like only for them to be an ACC champion again.
But JT, this is the thing. If Miami doesn't lose, though, they're not in. Like, so to me, they did nothing to get in proactively.
They did. Miami did it. They won when it mattered.
Yeah, and that's fine.
It's impressive.
But let's be fair. Oregon's undefeated. Like that, you can't get around.
Congrats to Dan Lanning. Good for him.
You're just an Oregon hater because you hate Dan Lanning because he beat your guy Dion. That's all. And he out-trash-talked him. That's what happened in that game. You hated him ever since that.
There's nothing to do with Dion.
Absolutely.
If anybody worried about Dion, it's Dan Lanning. I guarantee you, if Oregon wins the national championship, the first thing he'll say at the press conference will be something about Colorado. You guys want to take bets on that? Anyway, next,
no chance.
Yeah, right. I don't trust Dan Lanning. He can't help himself. More impressive. And we'll figure out the answer to this question in a little bit here. Ashton Jeanty or Travis Hunter?
This is another tough one. I gotta say though, I'm excited for both of them, and I'm excited that like the 2 front runners in the Heisman Trophy race this year aren't quarterbacks. I think that's just fun and exciting and good for the game of college football. I mean, I think you can pick your poison with these guys, but I did a little bit of a deeper dive into the stats. Ashton Jeanty comes across, with the 4th highest single season rushing yards, and ultimately, like what he's doing is historic. And I heard someone make the point, and I feel bad I can't give him credit, but like week in and week out, everyone who plays Boise knows you've got to stop the run game. You've got to stop Jeanty. And despite that, he's averaging like over 7 yards a carry. He was, first in FBS with like 192 rushing yards per game, which is like more than 58 yards ahead of the next best guy. Tied for first in FBS with 29 rushing touchdowns. I mean, the dude had an incredible season. And yeah, Travis Hunter's been incredible as well. But I think when you put in the context of like 4th highest single season rushing yards, I'm going with Ashton.
Coach C, I hate doing this, but I got to disagree.
Do it.
And listen,
do it.
Ashton Jeanty, he's been my guy from the beginning, right? He may have been one of my dark horses for the Heisman. I don't remember.
Is it on that paper?
It might be. It is.
On the paper, it is. So,
I wasn't even sure how to say his name at the beginning of the season.
No. We're not letting you do this. If the shit's not on the paper, it does not count.
But listen, I big fan of his. Both seasons have been historic by both guys, and it's I almost wish there could be co-Heisman because this would be the one year to do it, right? This really would be. And when I broke down the numbers, because at first I was like, it's got to be Jeanty. But I think there's a little bit of an X factor that I'll get to real quick. But he's the only player, and this isn't the X factor, I'll give you stats first, the only FBS player to log over 150 snaps on both offense and defense. All right. He's also first FBS player in a quarter century to combine elite production as a receiver and defensive back, which I'll get to here. All right. 92 receptions, 1,152 yards, 14 touchdowns. Those 14 touchdowns lead the power conferences. All right. 1 rushing touchdown, not a big deal. But he ranks 2nd in the power conferences and 5th in FBS, receiving yards per games and receptions per game. This is all on offense, mind you. This is all on offense. Then when you get to his defensive dominance, all right, 11 pass breakups, 4 interceptions. He allowed only 22 receptions all year on 39 targets, only 6 first downs, 1 touchdown. He ranks third in Power 4 and 8th in FBS for passes defended and interceptions. And, you look at his historical stuff. This is where it gets really, really interesting. Only FBS player in history to earn Power 4 offensive and defensive player in the week in the same season, midseason All-American on both sides of the ball. But this is the X factor. If we switch guys, Genty to Colorado, Travis Hunter to Boise State, Shedeur Sanders is now in the Heisman voting, in my opinion, over Genty. Because Genty was a product of the environment, and this isn't taking anything away from him. If he went to Colorado, he'd still be a phenomenal running back, still the best running back in the country, but the stats would be different because of Shedeur Sanders. And we have to be honest about that. The other stuff is at Boise State, Travis Hunter goes there. Okay, the running game might be different, but I still think they get to a conference title game. They plug in a different running back. The run scheme is the same. The offensive mentality is the same, except now they have an explosive offensive player in Travis Hunter, who also now plays defense, makes their defense better. I'm surprised Shedeur Sanders hasn't gotten more love at the Heisman. And when it comes down to it, it's because Travis Hunter is that amazing. He is doing something we've never seen. If Charles Woodson won a Heisman over Peyton Manning, there's no way Travis Hunter should not win it.
Yeah, no disrespect to Ashton Genty, but I'm not even sure he's the best running back in college football. I think there's a guy in Iowa that wants to have a conversation with him about who gets that award. But that's for another show. Coach, I hate to do this to you, and I hate to do this even more and agree with this guy. That's why you're in the middle between us, because we got to be separated. But it's Travis Hunter. Like, it's not even close for a few reasons. Obviously, Don gave us the stats. Thank you for doing the research. I didn't want to have to look at all those numbers, but you're absolutely right. I figured they'd be similar to what he said. But the real reason is I'm going to vote for the guy that is out there being the Ohtani of college football. We're never going to see this again. And I'm glad you brought up Charles Woodson, because I always hated in the past where we gave these Heisman Awards to these guys where, like, they play one side of the ball specifically, and they might get maybe like 5 or 6 plays during the season on the other side of the ball. We're like, oh, but he plays offense. Charles Woodson was not playing offense like that. He wasn't playing all these snaps on offense and defense. He'd come in, run some trick plays, might score, but he was mainly a defensive person. And Travis Hunter is not the case. Like, he is their best defensive player, and there's an argument he might be their best offensive player too. And he's playing the whole game both ways. Like, that is so rare. And for us to give the award to Ashton Genty over him, I think is just so disrespectful to the award, especially when you look at the historical relevance of what Genty is doing. Because I'm sorry, Kevin Smith at UCF, which I remember when he was running for all those yards, did anybody give him a Heisman? No, nobody cared. And look at recently, Chuba Hubbard had a 2,000-yard rushing season. People forgot he even played college football at Oklahoma State. Ollie Gordon just did it last year. Nobody cared. Jonathan Taylor had a 2,000-yard rushing season at Wisconsin. Nobody cared. And they played in Power 5 conferences against elite talent. So you trying to tell me that the guy that plays in the G5 conference having the same type of production, now all of a sudden he should be the automatic Heisman winner just because of his pure stats? No, it's Travis Hunter, and I don't think it's close. What he's doing is historic. It will never be done again. And like I said, he's the Ohtani of college football. It should be him. He is more impressive. Oh, God, I hate this question. More impressive. Don didn't have anything to say, so I like that. More impressive, Dylan Gabriel or Cam Ward? Let's go with Don first, because I know he can't be objective about anything Miami Hurricanes. So go ahead. Give us your pitch.
What do you mean I can't be objective? What does that mean?
I said what I said. Answer the question.
I've been objective all night.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, the answer is easy here. More impressive, it's Cam Ward. There's no doubt here. I mean, listen, Dylan Gabriel, great season, but I feel like everyone's expected a little bit more from him because he's not going to win the Heisman. And I think, according to Coach Cassidy, that was one thing I did write down. Coach Cassidy had him winning the Heisman. So to me, that Dylan Gabriel, he didn't live up to the hype. Now, the team had a great season, but I think that's the key word, the team. And this is why I say Cam Ward more impressive. You take Dylan Gabriel, put him on this exact Miami Hurricane team, we're still good. We're probably 8-4 good, not 10-2 good. And Cam Ward, some of the things he was doing, unbelievable. And he really did carry the Canes. I mean, the Virginia Tech comeback, the Cal comeback. You look at that first game against Florida, he was on a different level. That Florida defense, I don't care. A lot of SEC people want to say, I would have loved to have seen Miami play Florida later in the year. Let's go. Line them up and let's go. Put them in the ball game. Cam Ward's going to do the same thing again. Go ahead and try to stop that guy. He even got better as the season went on because they started to really gel together. They were a three-headed monster in the backfield. Go ahead, Florida. Bring it on again. But it's Cam Ward. If we switch quarterbacks, Oregon's still undefeated, but Miami's 8-4. Plain and
simple. Can you imagine Cam Ward on Oregon?
Ridiculous. It'd be ridiculous.
Don't even put the playoffs. Just put them in the championship game and let's see who gets there.
No offense to Travis Hunter, Cam Ward would have won the Heisman.
Oh, facts. Coach, you agree with him?
Well, I knew you both would choose Travis Hunter. That's why I had to go with Genty. All right, and I knew you guys are both going to choose Cam Ward. So this is why I'm going with Dillon Gabriel. All right.
No.
Bucci, I feel like you would make this argument. I feel like you would make the argument about team success being vital, and that how people are judged, especially at the quarterback position, comes down to, does your team win a Super Bowl? Does your team win a championship? And I think that's what Dillon Gabriel has. Obviously, Cam Ward's numbers are better. He's first in all these major categories. Dillon Gabriel is second. They've both had incredible seasons, statistically speaking, and what they've done on the field. But it's Gabriel who has led his team into the playoffs. It's Gabriel who's led his team to a conference championship. And it's Gabriel who's got his team undefeated after the regular season. And so for that, I'm going with Gabriel.
I agree with everything you said up until the Dillon Gabriel answer. But I mean, the thing is, the question was more impressive, not most successful or more important. It was more impressive. And if you just look at the season, to not be impressed by Cam Ward, I mean, he's played himself into possibly a top 5 draft position. Like Dillon Gabriel comes out of the draft,
and it's a lot for him to go to the Giants. Like think about where he was a year ago. They basically told him go back to school. Right, he's a top 5 pick.
So I took the answer as we're just looking at these two individual quarterbacks, because obviously the team success, you got to go with Oregon. There's no doubt. And Dillon, don't get me wrong, Dillon Gabriel's a big part of that success they've had. But if we just flip QBs, I don't think Dillon Gabriel, no one's talking about him on this show tonight.
He might be back in the transfer portal again.
We'd be talking about him in the wrong way. We'd be dogging him.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you, Don. All I gotta say is Cam Ward kept me up late so many nights to watch a team with maybe one of the worst defenses I've seen in 20 years. Like, Cam Ward had me up to 4 a.m. Eastern time. I was like, I can't believe what I just saw. Like, we were down 40. We came back. Like, what he did this year is amazing. Like, for him to carry that team, and it's not just carrying the team, because, you know, like you talk about team wins and all that, but he literally carried the team. Like, this defense could not do anything right. This is the worst Canes defense I've ever seen in my life. And he had them on the edge of making the playoffs. Like, it's Cam Ward, man. Like, the fact that the defense was so bad is the reason why we're not in the playoffs. And that's the reason why he's also not getting a lot of hype for the Heisman more than he should, is because our team was so bad that they're basically treating him like an old Texas Tech quarterback. Like, you would have thought we were in the air raid, how much he had to throw the ball. It's like, nah, he's just that nice. So I agree. Ain't nothing Dillon Gabriel did. And I picked him to win the Heisman. Ain't nothing he did this year.
Oh, you that picked him. One of you did.
You look at your damn sheet. You know it's written down. Ain't nothing that Dillon Gabriel did that remotely impressed me to what Cam Ward was doing. So I agree with Don. It's definitely Cam Ward. All right. This is a good one. More likely to be on the NFL coaching radar. So this is a guy that you think is going to be the next guy to likely jump to an NFL head coaching job. Dan Lanning, Deion Sanders, or Kalen DeBoer, you guy who you love. Coach, which one of those 3 guys do you think is going to be the next guy to make that NFL leap?
So I think DeBoer is not like an NFL guy. I don't think that's in his personality or his DNA. He just strikes me as more of a college guy. So I think he's out. And Dan Lanning's been on the record for saying that Oregon is like a destination job for him. He's got young kids. His family's very happy being settled in Eugene. Look at what he's doing in year 1. Oregon's set up for great success.
Look at Dan Lanning. Look at Dan Lanning pandering to those clicks. I love it.
Indeed. But and then Deion, right? And so, like, how wedded is Deion to Colorado? Travis Hunter's leaving. Shador's leaving. There's all this rumor about NFL interest in him, the Cowboys. I just think like he's the most likely to be quick to leave to the NFL. And I think like he's going to get some interest. He's going to get some interest.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree. I think it's Deion Sanders. Mainly because I think if Shador right now, the way it is, New York Giants are 1, Raiders are 2. Giants will not have a coach at the end of the year. They don't have a quarterback. So if they take Shador, I think he would definitely listen to the Giants. And listen, it's New York, Madison Avenue. I mean, the Giants could not have played that any better. This is better than when Eli said he would not play for the Chargers. Like this is like Joe Namath of the 2020s coming to New York now. I mean, father, son, it doesn't get to be a better story. And if they pass on him by mistake, then you've got the Raiders. And listen, JT and I are Antonio Pierce fans, but I'll tell you what, if the Raiders make that call to Shador, exactly. If the Raiders make that call to Shador that he wants to be the man, and Shador's like, well, Dad's got to come along. See you, Antonio. You want to be linebackers coach or defensive coordinator? Because head coach ain't working out anymore. So that is why,
one word, 2 words, that's it.
That is why right now, I think with the way the Giants and Raiders are sitting 1-2, taking Shador, they each need a quarterback. I think Deion comes along. And listen, I think that'd be a great move for either of those organizations. It fits great into both of their cultures.
This is tough. Well, let's eliminate Dan Laming because I think he's in that Kirby Smart saving mode where I think he's definitely not leaving college football. DeBoer, I'm more inclined to pick him just because out of these 3 coaches, he actually has the calling to improve somebody's offense in the league. And his assistants are already in the NFL doing it because Grubb is OC out for the Seahawks and it's working out well. Geno's like 1 or 2 in passing yards in the NFL. So the system is showing it can work. You bring up a good point. I didn't know that about him, that, he's really not an NFL guy, but I don't think he has a choice if, somebody comes with the right bag to offer him. I just see him being the one to go with. Deion, I can see him going to the NFL because I think he really only cares about his kids getting to the league. And then once they leave Colorado, like, who knows what happens? Like, does he stay there? Does he go to another, Power 5 program? Does he just not coach anymore? I mean, the Cowboys are saying they might give him a job. So Deion's the wild card just because I think a lot of what makes him happy are tied to those 3 kids, and they're going to be gone. So does he want to coach? I don't know. But I'm going to say it's the board just because that's what tracks. Guys that can coach offense usually get that call from the big leagues. And I'm sorry, Don, you made a good prediction, but what he did with Jalen Milroe this year, I mean, is unreal. Like, he's a first-round pick now. Or last year, they were like, can he even play quarterback when Nick Saban was coaching him? So I think it's DeBoer. But I got to have pause based on what you said about his personality because I didn't know that.
But this is –
but that's just speculation. That's speculation on my end. I don't know.
I believe you. You locked in. You're the expert. I believe you.
Well, this is the thing to kind of back up Coach Cassidy's point is he went from Washington to Alabama. How many times I understand, but what I'm saying is that's the destination job, right? Like, how many guys do you see that would leave Alabama for the pros, especially when they're still having success, 9-3? Like, everyone's acting, and we'll get to the question a little bit, everyone's acting like the house is falling in here. It's not.
No, it's
like, the board knows exactly what he's doing.
I just think guys that are good offensive, because Lincoln Riley went through the same thing when he was at his height too. Everybody was like, oh, he's going to go to the NFL. Like, I'm not saying he'll take the offers, but I think sometimes it's hard to turn it down. Look at Matt Rule. Like, you go to NFL, get your bag, suck at your job, and you can always come back to college.
But again,
it's hard to say no.
But Matt Rule was leaving what? Baylor. This is Alabama. This is the top of the top.
This was Alabama.
No, it still is. Coach Cassidy,
You're right. It was Bama. Now it's Alabama again.
Before we go to the next question, though, Coach Cassidy, is there hesitation saying it's Deion because does he need to have a little bit more full control in terms of how he wants to do things, where an NFL owner or GM might try to rein that in, whereas at Colorado, they better get out of his way because he's running the show. and he's
in the
building
NFL,
that
he'll have a boss.
and he's building that program. Like that's my only concern of it. Dion really wants to make that jump. But again, if his son is there, maybe Dion will play, he'll play ball with the GM or the owner, maybe.
That's something I hadn't considered. It's an interesting question. Has he been on the record at all about saying like what he would want in an NFL setting, or?
No, not exactly. But I mean, you just see at Colorado, yeah, not even personality-wise, just the way he wants to run it, which I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But you see at Colorado, like in the NFL, I don't think he's allowed to wear a gold headset. He gets fined. He gets whatever for it. Like that's what I'm saying. There's certain things in the NFL. And listen, to you and I, that might not seem like a big deal, but that's part of it, right? That's part of prime time. That's why
doing whatever he wants.
That's why we love the
boss.
personality. Like that's why you either love or hate that personality. But I don't think he can wear a gold headset on the sideline, right? It needs to be like a standard NFL headset. Like, so to me, that's a little different. I don't know how he'll take some of that.
He also has been on the record for saying that he loves like helping young men develop as people. And when you hear him talk like that, there's something convincing in that.
But Coach Cassidy, he will also then say a higher power is then telling him to go to the NFL to help these other guys, become better men.
Fair point.
So I wouldn't, and it's not to say anything wrong with that, but he has that spiritual belief that he feels like if it's time to move on, he'll move on and he'll find, another calling. That's a good way of putting it.
All right. Well, let's run through these next few real quick because I have a feeling you guys are going to go the same way on these. All right, panic or relax. Bama as a top 5 program going forward. Coach C, you panicking or relaxing?
I'm relaxing with them in the top 5. I think if you look at conference affiliation, coaching, facilities, NIL commitment, recruiting, both like on the national landscape and within the transfer portal, Alabama checks all those boxes. I can't name 5 programs that are in a better position than they are right now. They're in the top 5.
Don, do you agree with that?
Boy, I'm relaxed after that answer. Go ahead, JT.
I'm panicking. They won't have
You're such a hater.
They won't have the depth to match like what Saban used to have, and that's what kept them in the top 5 consistently is the depth. Like they had freshmen that weren't going to play for 3 years. They were first-round draft picks, kind of similar to UM. It's not happening for Bama in this day and age, and I feel like their ceiling is not going to be as high as the Georgia and Ohio State and Michigan's anymore because for some reason they can hold on to that talented roster a little bit longer than Bama can. Maybe it will change, but right now I'm panicking.
JT, that's a good thought, but this is the difference maker. NIL and the portal. You don't need to have depth anymore. You don't. Like, look at what Miami's doing with their quarterbacks. They're just rotating in and out every year.
I'm watching what Miami's doing.
But Alabama has the right head coach in place.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I did dig into the numbers a little bit. As of early signing day, they're the number 2 class for 2025.
Woo!
And the portal opened
It'll
up.
Be gone.
It'll be gone. Earlier this week, and they have had no key losses yet entering the portal.
That sounds like more depth is staying.
Sounds like they were in top 5 to begin with. All right, panic or relax. Same thing. Michigan as a top 5 program. Don, go to you. You look eager to answer.
Go ahead, Don.
Listen, this is no offense to their head coach.
Hella offense.
I'm going to panic, and this is why. Look how long it took Jim Harbaugh to get them into a top 5 type of program. At one point, we had this discussion on the show, and both JT and I stayed away from
He was the original Ryan Day.
From panicking. We said, you got to stick with Harbaugh. Look how well he's done. He just hasn't gotten over that hump. He'll get there, and he eventually did. But right now, it's not a top 5 program, and I don't really see it being a top 5 program in the next 3 or 4 years. I think they can get there with more, but it's just like Harbaugh. It's going to take time. Like, he's got to build his own culture. That's just kind of the way it is at Michigan because them and Ohio State are competing with the same guys in that area. Now you've got SEC teams trying to plug away from the Northeast too in that Rust Belt area. And so it's going to take time. He'll get there, but I'm panicking in terms of right now, top 5 program. I think it'll take like 3 years, but he showed what he's made out of beating Ohio State, though.
Coach, you agree with that?
No doubt. And I'm with you, Don. I think they're not a top 5 right now, but I think they're top 15. And I think being a top 15 program, when you get the right group in and you develop them, you get the right quarterback, you get hot, and that's your year, and that's when you can strike from you're in the playoffs, you win a couple, and you're the national champions. But they were number 9 in the early signing day recruiting, number 16 last year signing. Their top 5 or top 15 NIL spending. I do agree. I think they got a great coach in place. But year in and year out, I don't think they have everything that some of those other like blue blood programs have that we're mentioning when you talk about like Ohio State, Georgia, and Oregon, frankly.
I gotta agree with you guys. I'm panicking. And I don't want to say this, but this reminds me of the Larry Coker situation with UM, where it's like, the coach leaves, you have this real talented team, all the players love this guy that's already on the staff, and it may or may not work out for that 1 year. And I feel like those situations tend to not progress to the same heights as they were before. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we talked about this countless amount of times. Harbaugh's a winner. And you look at everywhere he's been and left, like those programs don't recover right away. Like Stanford still has not gotten back to that level they were when he was there. So I feel like it's hard to replace a.
I feel like David Shaw did a heck of a job.
I feel like it took him a while to get there, though, and like I don't think it was the level of Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh had them getting elite recruits, and they were winning games. Where it's like Shaw, I think, did more with what he had. Like Stanford was a destination of the Harbaugh.
Didn't Shaw get Christian McCaffrey? I mean, that's a heck of a recruit.
Like Christian McCaffrey was Christian McCaffrey. Like he was a 5-star recruit.
That's what
I don't think he was.
Well, even if he wasn't, he still got
Christian
McCaffrey. But got Christian McCaffrey.
But I think it's hard to replace a guy like Harbaugh because it's such a winning program that he creates wherever he goes. He did it with the 49ers too. So I think just replacing that guy and losing him and losing that culture, I think that's why there won't be a top 5 program.
I don't think it was a knee-jerk reaction to hire him though, JT, because look at the Marcus Freeman.
I don't.
Look at the Marcus Freeman
Harbaugh.
situation. But the Freeman situation was the same. Brian Kelly, we forget Notre Dame was floundering. They go from Ty Willingham to Charlie Weiss, Bob Davie. Like they were floundering for years. And then they finally get that stability with Brian Kelly, and boom, he leaves. Now he took them to at least one national title game, got him into a play. But like all of a sudden, people were like, oh, maybe Marcus Freeman's too young. Maybe he's not ready. And it's like, nowadays it's different because a lot of it is recruiting. It is being able to relate to families and players. If you put a good staff around you, you'll be all right. So I don't necessarily agree that it was like a knee-jerk reaction and he's the next Larry Coker. Like
I said Larry Coker.
Come on, man.
Got triggered.
Come on, man.
Hey,
One more point.
Larry Coker got us a good season. All right.
Absolutely.
I forgot to mention Michigan did just sign the number 1 player in the 2025 class, Bryce Underwood, quarterback, who they flipped
because they need one. They ain't got no quarterback. He gonna play right away.
And the comps for him are Cam Newton. And imagine what a guy like that could do in like a physical QB run style offense that Michigan's gonna look to use. So
I ain't gonna lie,
it could be intriguing.
If you compare anybody to Cam Newton, I gotta see it first because you can end up with Terrell Pryor. It ain't the same.
Oh, Terrell Pryor was good in college. What are you talking about?
Was he? All right, Ryan, speaking of Ohio State, Ryan Day's future at Ohio State, relax or panic, Coach C?
Panic. The fans should relax. The fans should relax because I think realistically, like you fire Ryan Day, who are you going to get? And look at his who?
Urban Meyer.
Look at his.
Like, all honesty, Urban Meyer will come back and have this thing running right. Like, I hate the guy, but he itching to come back. He's at bars alone without his family on the holidays. Like, he's depressed. He needs Ohio State, and Ohio State needs him. It's a match made in hell. They need each other.
If I'm Ryan Day, I'm panicking because there is just a lot of pressure. And, I think a lot of people are saying if you don't beat Tennessee at home, pack your boxes. So, but I think, yeah, that rivalry game against Michigan, losing 4 years in a row, and especially the way they lost this year at home is going to be damning to him if he can't have a good run here in the playoffs.
Yeah.
What's also interesting, one last point is like I was reading a little bit of like the timing. If they don't have a good playoff run, like, do you really want to fire somebody in like January with recruiting and then like who's your replacement and the timing? Not to mention his buyout's a mere $37 million.
Ooh, they got it. But that's a good point because that's kind of what happened to Miami and why Cristobal came and was so far behind the ball. He came in too late. So,
and that was December. That was like late December, right around Christmas. So it really was not that late compared to
late for his
January. But yeah, I agree with Coach Cassidy. I mean, if you're Ryan Day, you got to panic. Like if I'm an Ohio State fan, if I'm administration, I'm not too worried because we're always going to be good. Even with Ryan Day, we're going to go 11-1, maybe 12-0. Like we'll be all right. But if you're Ryan Day for your future at Ohio State, you got to make a run here. I think minimum you got to get to a semifinal because if you win this game, then they match up with Oregon, I believe. Like you lose twice to Oregon, once to Michigan. Depends how you look against Oregon. But if you get blown out or if you make a Mario Cristobal don't take a knee at the end of a game moment, that's where the problem
Cristobal
is.
the only one doing that weird stuff. Come on,
but you get my
yeah,
point. You get my point. Yeah.
I think the whole Ohio State should be panicking because I've never seen this. How is Ryan Day being like the Benjamin Button version of Jim Harbaugh? Like and Jim Harbaugh said it. Some of us were born on third base, and then he running the bases the wrong way. Like he going backwards. Like they have these generationally talented teams, and he just fumbling the bag. Like you're gonna look back on this and be like, how the hell did they not win? Because Nick Saban would have won with these teams. Jim Harbaugh would have won with these teams. Urban Meyer won with these teams. So shit, I think Mario Cristobal got one with these teams. Like they're just so talented. Like how is Ryan Day not getting it done? Like, and I think that scuffle with the flag plant situation at the end of the Michigan game, I think kind of signaled that it is done because Moore was in there breaking up the Michigan players, and you can tell they responded to him because they respect him. Like Ryan Day was sitting there looking like an idiot with that dumb look on his face, and he was like, "No, I can't go in there because they ain't gonna listen to me because I've already lost the locker room." Like I think it's done. Anything short of they maybe play Oregon and it's down to the wire, I think it's panic, and I think he knows he's cooked. So I don't think the buyout matters. I think they will be looking to move on from him. So I'm panicking on all fronts as far as his future at Ohio State. Oh, I love this. Relax or panic. Let me just turn off my mic after this. FSU in the remainder of the Mike Norvell era. I'll let you two fight over who wants to answer this question first. I'm going to log off real quick.
Go ahead, Coach Cassidy. You're the FSU fan.
Well, after all the attention we've given Miami and how disappointing the season was, it's only fitting that we address this now, right? But I think it's panic, right? Anytime a program fires both coordinators and has to make 2 new coordinator hires, that something's amiss. And for those not following along, that is what Mike Norvell has done. Dismissed both coordinators. He hired Tony White from Nebraska, and Gus Malzahn resigned from UCF to come be the offensive coordinator at Florida State. Both of those guys are bringing staff members that they trust immensely with them. Both the O-line coach is coming with Gus from UCF, and the D-line coach is coming with Coach White from Nebraska, among others. But look at the free fall from last year, 15-0, almost going into the playoffs. Now they are 2-10. And not just like 2-10 and they lost some tough games or what have you. They were atrocious on offense, among the worst in all of college football. They ranked 130th in rushing. They ranked 115th in passing. They were 131st in scoring. They only broke 20 points once all year, and it was the opening game against Georgia Tech in Dublin. They lost to all their rivals. I mean, it would be hard to think of a worse season, and so they are certainly panicking. Part of this issue at Florida State has had to do with recruiting. And the criticism of a lot of the coaches that he previously had on staff was that they were not that good at recruiting the high schoolers. And so it'll be interesting to see how these new coaches can do recruiting-wise. They've been relying on the portal. Obviously, they had Jared Verse and Keon Coleman, who were portal successes and helped turn around previously bad seasons there in Tallahassee. But they need to do well in the portal this year. Obviously, they missed a bunch last year. DJU did not pan out. So it'll be interesting to see if Norvell can circle the wagons and get this thing turned around. Just finished with the 23rd ranked class so far through early signing day. But I'm very curious to see how these coordinator hires turn out and if he can get it turned around. But if not, I don't know. What, he got one more year?
So you said panic or relax?
Panic.
Okay. Well, I liked all the reasons you gave, so that's why I'm going to go with relax, because I think that he's now brought in some new coordinators, right? Listen, DJU, that was a mistake. Sometimes you miss on portal guys. I mean, there's no doubt. Like Wisconsin, they didn't hit on Tyler Van Dyke, and they had a bad year. Like sometimes that is going to happen, but sometimes you'll get a De'Ara King, you'll get a Cam Ward, and it changes your team for that year. So, made a mistake. Like, not that they made a mistake. They were trying to replace what I think was a very underrated quarterback in Travis Jordan, sorry. And again, you mentioned guys like Jared Verse. They did a good job building through the portal. And so I think they did neglect some of their recruiting. And that was fine because they went undefeated with that portal team. And it just happened that everything kind of fell down all at once. But listen, if you let him walk, who do you bring in? Because the thing is, you're either going to bring in a guy similar to Norvell that has had success at like a Memphis, but, you're taking a gamble, or you need to really pay up for a guy that's coming from like Lincoln Riley from USC, or how Miami did getting a Mario Cristobal from Oregon. Does Florida State want to do that? I haven't seen the commitment yet from their athletic department to the Florida State football program in a while, probably since Jimbo Fisher's early years. So to me, if you want to move on from him, fine, but you better have a really, really good plan in place. But I think they trust him. And listen, he's done a heck of a job. As a Canes fan, I hope he would leave, because I think Florida State would have to rebuild and it'll take time. But if I'm Florida State, I'm relaxing.
I think they did just extend him and give him more money after Saban retired, because I think his name was he was, speculated to be filling in for Saban there.
Smart negotiating.
Damn, Bama dodged a bullet.
Wow.
No, I gotta disagree with you. I'm gonna panic for a few reasons. I think it's not all his fault. You make a good point. I don't think FSU's athletic department is fully committed to doing what it takes to compete in today's landscape. And I think that's always been their problem. I think that's why the Jimbo Fisher era ended the way it did, and why they were able to have to go get a Mike Norvell that was, upside, but a cheaper option.
You forget who was in between those guys. Willie Taggart. Willie Taggart.
I talk about this dude every week with Mike. But I feel like FSU's commitment to not be with the times is what's hurting them. But I will say this: Mike Norvell got to show me something, because I've seen three things that worry me under his tenure. Because I think we all get blinded by that undefeated season. It's like, that's great, but like, he's had bad starts. I feel like 3 of the seasons he's been there, he got a 2-win season. He had this bad season this year. Like, he's had a lot of slow starts. So I think the undefeated season was the anomaly when we're looking at his body of work. The other thing is, FSU got a big problem with developing players that they recruit. And you see it. Like, if it wasn't for the portal, FSU would be the worst team in the ACC. Like, they just don't develop the guys they recruit. I don't know if that's on him or they're not getting the right guys in there. Like, it's amazing how many guys they just don't develop. And everything that I feel like has been positive about the Mike Norvell era has been through the portal. And I think that's why they invest so much of the NIL in the portal, to keep guys that they've hit on in the portal, to have them not jump to the NFL early. So I would have loved him to go to Alabama, because he would have had to show that you can develop guys that you recruit. So I'm panicking because I think Mike Norvell is what happens when you give the Manny Diaz of the world, like impunity, and just let them like figure it out. Like it's going to be a crazy ass roller coaster that's going to leave you more lows than highs. So if I had a chance to move on, maybe go get a Deion Sanders like they should have did the first time. Maybe I do it. But I'm panicking because Norvell's body of work is not showing me that this is sustainable as far as winning.
Manny Diaz had a great year.
Yeah, give it time. It'll sink in. We've been there.
Yeah, but JT, he's doing it. He's doing it at Duke.
Manny, bring him back. And let's see if we can make the playoffs.
I guarantee you, with this team in his defensive prowess, we would have been a much better defensive team.
Prowess.
Hey,
come on, man.
Bro, Penn State didn't hire him for no reason. I mean, come on now.
He
had
a good defensive coordinator. Amazing.
Exactly my point.
Oh, you mean like if we had him as a DC? I thought you meant as like the head coach.
No. This exact same team. You don't think Manny goes 10-2? Please, come on. He probably at least goes 11-1. He does not lose. He does not lose 21.
The issue you're not addressing is, does Manny get the players that Mario would get to put him in a position to go 10-2?
You always do this, and we're not going to get into it because this is not a Canes podcast.
Sound like you about to get into it.
But Manny was not supported the way Mario is by the university. He did not have the resources. There was no NIL deal. The portal was just beginning, and Manny hit on the portal. Who you think brought in De'Aaron King? Who do you think is all the guys at SMU winning?
Who brought in Mike Harley and Poe?
7 of those guys.
And all these other guys who you hate with a passion they put on the Canes uniform. Manny brought those guys in.
7 of Manny's players just took SMU to the playoffs.
No, Rhett Lashley took them boys to the playoffs, and I told you we should have hired him and not let him leave, but I digress. This is us not getting into it.
It's not a Canes podcast. All right, so last segment of the show, everyone's favorite. Coach C, you haven't played it in a while. Forget about it or Fugazi. We're going to read a statement, and if you agree with it, if you like it, if you think it's a good statement, you're going to say forget about it. If you disagree with it, you think it's a garbage take, you're going to say Fugazi. All right? We good? All right. First one, Coach C. Bill Belichick, who has been hired. They just need the board's approval, 5-year deal to become the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels football program. So Bill Belichick will make UNC a contender.
Well, I'm going Fugazi, but I thought it was a 3-year, $30 million deal.
That is not what ESPN is reporting.
Okay.
They've reported a 5-year deal. Now, they didn't say how much, but it is pending board approval, but it said they agreed to a 5-year deal, did not give the amount.
Interesting. So many questions. This has been a fascinating search. I read great reporting in The Athletic about how disjointed it has been through different parts of the university, the athletic department, the boosters, the board, and basically these guys are not all on the same page. And I think thing number one for success in college football is institutional alignment, and it just doesn't seem like they have that at UNC. And then there's just like a lot of questions about how Belichick is going to react to being a college coach. Like, how does he interact with these young kids? How does he interact with recruiting? How's he going to, handle the boosters and the relationships? He wants to be coaching. He wants to watch film. He wants to go to practice. He wants to get on the grease board. Like, that's what he's going to do and do well. No one's going to dispute that. I'm not, saying he's not one of the most legendary coaches of all time at any level, but do his skills translate well to today's college football? And I think like one of his good friends in coaching is Nick Saban. Nick Saban has retired from college because of the way it's going. And here you've got Belichick going into college with this direction. I just don't know how well it works out. And then, frankly, you just got to look at the landscape of the ACC in general. In order to be a contender, you've got to be at the top of your conference. And right now you've got SMU looks pretty good. Miami looks pretty good, right? Clemson has been the top dog in that conference. So, right now you're 4th place. So, Fugazi.
Woo! JT.
I ain't gonna lie, that was heat, but I agree. It's Fugazi. It's Fugazi because Nick Saban was a perfect example. The best to ever do it, who is the most similar to a Bill Belichick type archetype, just got the hell out of Dodge because he said this game ain't for me anymore. And it's like, I want to know how much of Bill Belichick's heart is actually in coaching at UNC because there's so many rumors. I heard a rumor that his son must be on the staff and he's got to be the coach in waiting. That's a part of the deal. I heard he gave out like this, I don't know if it's like a manifesto or so, whatever, this rule Bible. I'm like, what are you trying to hear that? Like, this ain't the NFL. Like, I can't imagine Bill Belichick going out on the recruiting trail and be like, you know what, man? You got to come here, work hard, no fun, blah, 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 to go 7 wins with UNC. It's like, nah, I'm going to go to Ohio State, have a ball. I'm going to go to USC, get paid millions, have a ball. I'm going to go to Dan Lanning and watch him pretend to care about class, have a ball. Like, I just don't see how Bill Belichick's style of personality will attract people to come to UNC. Like, I just don't see it. And then also, like, how do I know that he just don't want to go back to the NFL to get the wins record? Like, it's the first chance he gets. Like, how committed is he? And then the biggest thing for me is he out there dating women like 3 times younger than him. Like, I don't think his heart isn't working that much anymore if it's not working to further his, like, overall NFL legacy. So, like, everything about this UNC thing just tells me he's like, look, I'm trying to get a job for my kids, and this is the best way to do it. He's trying to pass on a generational wealth to his son because nobody in the NFL will hire his ass without Bill working for him. So I don't think this is serious, even though they paid for it. It doesn't seem like a serious thing. So I'm saying forgive me.
Y'all are both wrong. You are not.
Oh,
You're
come
going
on.
against.
I knew you were going to
You
go
are.
this route. Oh,
You
I'm
are
so scared
going
of Belichick.
against. You are going against the greatest coach in maybe the history of all of sports. This is forget about
Tom Brady ain't
And
playing at
JT,
UNC, bro.
and JT.
Tom Brady is not playing at UNC.
JT.
And he already showed he can't coach Mac Jones, so that's what he's going to be dealing with.
Can I give my answer? You
Yeah,
took
go
up
ahead, Gio,
20
go ahead,
minutes. This is supposed to be quick. All right. His heart's working fine. All right. Listen,
There
if he's
he
with a
is.
24-year-old, his heart's working fine. So don't worry about him there. All right. And listen, he is creating this organization, which is what it's going to be, UNC football. He's creating it. And I've told Coach Cassidy this since we've met back in 2019. Coaches in college, they essentially need to be like CEOs. And that's what he's going to be up until game day, right? He's already hired. Do you know he's hired a general manager already? Do you know who that is at UNC? It's going to be Michael Lombardi. Nope, Michael Lombardi, the guy that he trusts the most with all football decisions.
Oh, the guy who couldn't draft in the NFL? Oh, yeah, I love that.
So he is going to basically surround himself. Listen, you may disagree with who he hires, but the structure is what I'm worried about. And he's going to get that right. So at the end of the day, when you talk about, oh, does he need to go recruit an 18-year-old? No, he doesn't. He's not. He's going to have all his other guys recruit him and then bring them to campus. And listen, at the end of the day, this is the decision. You're either going to want to play for him or not. But this is what he's already said as part of his 400-page organizational Bible. It's not a manifesto. It's an organizational Bible. He's basically put in there, we're going to
the Bible. I'm out. I got to read an organizational Bible. Bro, I'm 18 years old trying to go to class, have fun. I'm not time to read this.
JT, you're smarter than this. They're not reading it. This is for the UNC program. It's not for the players. The players just need.
I'll guarantee you the players got rules that they got to follow.
But they're not gonna read the Bible. The rules are gonna be laid out for them. This Bible is
summer reading.
All right, can I finish my answer? Please. This Bible is for the program, for the administration. So when they try to go against them, they're gonna say, I laid this out for you. This is the way we're doing it. That's the end of story. That's the end. It's my word or nothing. And he's going to surround himself with all the people that can do everything else. They're simply bringing the 18-year-old. And at the end of the day, you want all the glitz and glamour, go somewhere else. But this is what he's going to sell them on. I will get you to the NFL. He's put it in that organizational Bible. We're going to foster and create that mobility from college and get you drafted. That's what it's going to come down. That's what he's going to sell them on. And you always told me that's why guys go to Bama and wait 3 years. That's why guys go to Miami to just put on the uniform thinking they're going to get drafted. These guys are going to go there. The NIL is going to be there. Whether it's USC or UNC, they've got the Jordan brand. It's going to be there. So forget about that. The money's going to be the same. The difference is you step in there, he's going to say, if you work, we'll get you there. And that's going to sell those guys. He's going to sell them on the NFL dream. He's going to tell them about all the connections he has in the NFL. And at the end of the day, like Coach Cassidy said, that's all his job is going to be. Get on the grease board, draw up those defenses, and win games. And he can do it in the ACC. If this was the SEC, I'd be worried. If he had to go head-to-head with Deion, I'd be worried. If he had to go head-to-head with Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, I'd be worried. Let's be honest. This is the ACC. Go back outside of Clemson. SMU's been in the title game. Pitt, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Maryland back in the early 2000s. Like, it's a revolving door other than Clemson. So why can't he do it at UNC? That's the perfect conference to do it in.
The BIBLE. All right.
All right, last one, Coach Cassidy. Lincoln Riley is a fraud. This is definitely a JT statement.
It's a tough one. I'm going to say forget about it. You don't
even believe that.
Is he an elite head coach? Is he an elite head coach? I don't know. Is he full-blown fraud? I don't know. Finishing 6-6 this year is not good. He's definitely on a downward slide. But I also don't think we should lose sight of the fact that, like, look at all these quarterbacks starting in the NFL that he has coached, that he, helped win Heisman trophies. He did not have his defense figured out at the beginning in USC. He fired Alex Grinch. We'll see. I mean, they had to deal with the transition to the Big Ten this year, which obviously was a challenge that they did not handle as well as some of the other programs on their West Coast. But, I'll give him another year or two before I call him a full-blown fraud. I'm curious to hear what you guys think.
JT?
Hell yeah. It's asking me, is he a fraud? Forget about it. Lincoln Riley has become sexy Instagram model Ryan Day. That's what he is. Like, born on third, he inherited a great Oklahoma program that was consistent every year, didn't work out, ran away, ran to USC. They gave him the world, the condos, the private mansion, the jet, Caleb Williams. They didn't do nothing with it. Like, I don't think he gets enough hate. This man has single-handedly ruined 2 blue blood programs. And if that was anybody else, they couldn't show their face in sports again. But because it's Lincoln Riley, like, nobody cares. Like, where does he go from here? Like, if it doesn't work out at USC, like, where do you trust him to be a head coach? Because all that stuff that he draws up and the quarterbacks winning Heisman, yeah, that should look sexy. But as they get to the NFL, we're starting to see it's the quarterbacks. Like, Kyler Murray's still good no matter who he's playing with. Jalen Hurts is good no matter who he's playing with. Like, is it him, or is it that he's just been lucky to get really good quarterbacks? Because every quarterback that he has hung his hat on played well without him in multiple situations. So I do think he's a fraud, and he got to do something to change my mind, because I've waited long enough, and Lincoln Riley was supposed to be dominating these playoffs by the time it got around to this, and he nowhere to be found. So fraud.
I disagree with both of you. I think it's Fugazi. You talk about he ruined Oklahoma. How? From 2017 to 2021, 12-2, 12-2, 12-2, 9-2, 10-2, 55-10 overall. I mean, three conference titles.
What did they win?
I mean, but JT, you act like – but JT,
they were already a 10-12 win program. But JT, he was supposed to be the guy that took them into the new era and won championships. He didn't do it.
You act like –
is that not true?
No, it's not true, because you act like Stoops won all these titles. He won one. And he was there only 5 years. For you to say he ruined it, that's where you're wrong. If you want to say he didn't live up to the expectations, say that. Use your words, choose your words wisely. But to say he ruined it, that's false. Then 11-3 his first year and a Heisman winner with Caleb Williams, because he has one bad year at 6-6. And I've told you this before. USC's delusional like Miami is. You cannot win there consistently. No on stadium camp or no on campus stadium. You're in a major market, major city with pro teams. And in fact, in LA, there's two.
I'm not trying to hear all that. Because Reggie Bush and them
He's
didn't
not
give
a fraud.
damn about none of that. But
JT,
and all that stuff you're saying didn't matter when Pete Carroll was there, did it? No.
JT, it did. It did. JT, they won one title. It got taken away because everything was illegal. That was the whole point of it. That's how they had to do it. They had to break the rules to do that.
Well, maybe he needs to start cheating because the shit's not working.
Don't call him a fraud.
I'm sorry. You
can call him a cheater. Don't call him a fraud.
Nobody loves a coach not living up to their expectations more than you. God, you will hold on to it like anybody. I think you got separation anxiety. Like any coach is decent, you're like, you gotta give him 10 years. Don't let him go. Like Lincoln Riley took over because they thought he was gonna turn them into a national championship factory. He was supposed to be the guy that brought them over the hump. They could beat the Bamas and Ohio States. Didn't work. He ran to USC because it wasn't gonna happen, and then he went to USC and it got worse.
And to be honest, it still isn't gonna happen. Maybe he saw something there that he saw. He said, as you always say, it's not gonna happen there because things behind the scenes. We don't know. The reason, all I say is you got to preach patience because if you don't preach patience,
he's been coaching for a decade,
and he was 55-10.
I don't understand how you got all these expectations for these other coaches, but like Lincoln, it's not just you. Lincoln Riley gets to just fly under the radar because his offenses are cool and they do all these big numbers. I don't give a damn. Like you coached at USC and Oklahoma with all pro quarterbacks. No coaches had that in the last 20 years. You got 0 championship appearances and no championships. I'm sorry, that's a fraud. That's a fraud.
Oklahoma.
If Mario Cristobal had the resume that Lincoln Riley had, you would call him a fraud too.
If he was 12-2 for 3, if he goes 12-2 the next 2 years and doesn't do any more, don't take a knee things, I give Mario credit for that. I would say, how could we get rid of him? How is he a fraud? How is he a fraud?
If we win 12 games in the next 2 years, you still gonna be talking about bringing back Manny Diaz. That's exactly what you're gonna do.
No. As long as he doesn't blow 21-point leads with the season on the line, as long as he knows how to take a knee, 12-2, sign me up the next 3 years. Sign me up.
Sorry.
That means one of those years we're in the playoffs.
Maybe I'm just being too mean. I think Lincoln Riley is too much of a pass, and I don't get why. Like
think a lot of coaches
talk about born on third. This man got everything given to him. He's not doing anything.
That's my whole point. That's like the 5th time you've said that. There's certain guys you don't like because you don't think they get enough heat, and that's fine. That's your opinion. But I disagree with you. But he's not a fraud.
He's not doing anything.
He's not a fraud. He's not a fraud. What are you going to do at USC? What are you going to do at USC if you don't pay the guys?
I go 6-6. I tell you
you got to pay the guys. They're not paying as much as Miami.
In a conference where everybody says they don't play defense, and Utah don't got half the talent they got, and they out there winning 10 to 12 games a year. I'm sorry, fraud.
Listen,
Arizona State was on the verge of just shutting down their program. They in the college football playoff. And representing the Pac-12 or whatever conference they in.
It's not. See, that's
Riley
your point.
was supposed to be better than all these boys. Washington went to a national championship with Michael Penix before Lincoln Riley even sniffed the championship. How are we still defending this? I don't get this.
Nah.
You make all these excuses.
It's like Coach Cassidy. Any last comments here before we got to wrap up the show? JT's taking up too much time.
Because you know I'm right. Because you got 12 guys in the national championship. It's going to be a national championship before him. Watch.
I think you both make really compelling points on the Lincoln Riley thing. Like he does not get much heat relative to expectations, but I agree with a lot of Don's points about like winning at USC. I don't think it's what it used to be.
But that's my whole point where you say he doesn't get him a lot of smoke. The reason is it's because he's in LA. He's at USC. Neither does Mario. Nationwide, Mario doesn't. He gets it from the Canes fans, which I'm sure USC fans give it to Lincoln Riley. But nationally, Mario doesn't get it either. You don't take a knee and lose the game. If that was Alabama, he's fired the next day. If that's Alabama, his house is egged. All of that. Like I don't get how you're so adamant about Lincoln Riley. I mean, what do you want the guy to do? That is a place that you cannot
win championships.
No.
I win one. Just do one. Get there. Just get the championship.
Give him time. He's been there 2 years. See, that's your problem.
You want me to give him another all-pro quarterback? Like, what else does he need?
He's building those all-pro quarterbacks.
I tell you what, Matty Diaz will have USC.
Miller Moss is in the portal.
See, Miller Moss. Sorry, buddy. I guess you weren't as good. Lincoln Riley would have fixed it.
Go somewhere and get to the playoffs before Lincoln Riley does.
That's on Miller Moss's criteria for schools he's looking to transfer to. A chance to compete for a championship and get into the playoff.
Exactly, because he knows Lincoln Riley ain't like that. Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, to the fans and listeners out there, thank you for listening. As always, we hope you enjoyed the show. And remember to please subscribe to JT and the Don All Sports Podcast. We can be found on all of the major platforms. We are presented by Give Us a Shot Network. So please also subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network YouTube channel. And remember, we can be found on social media. Our handle, JT and the Don. But first, when you subscribe to us, if you like what we do, please leave us a 5-star review. And JT,
if you don't like what we do,
leave us a 5-star review. We can be found on all of the social media platforms. But before we go, we want to say to Coach Cassidy, thank you very much for your time. Always a fun show. Always appreciate you enlightening us and our listeners and fans as our in-house college football expert. We hope to bring you back on maybe sometime during the offseason, maybe after the playoffs or title game, maybe.
It's always great to be on with you guys, and I'd love to come back whenever you'd like to have me.
All right. Sounds good. So, again, thank you for listening. JT, great episode as always. Way to bring the energy. Finally, you kind of matched my energy a little bit there, especially at the end. And JT, until the next episode, see ya.
Peace.